Okay, question for you. How do you decide how much money to spend on Yu-Gi-Oh cards? How do you decide? That's going to be the discussion today because I thought that would be a really fun topic. Welcome back to APS Amplifier. I'm Paul, and we make Yu-Gi-Oh discussions on this channel every single day that I can remember to do one of these videos. But yeah, I'm kind of intrigued and fascinated by this, and I wanted to share a bunch of opinions and thoughts on it, and of course, get other people's in the comments. Because as we know, Yu-Gi-Oh can be played at a myriad of different price points, and something that I'm really interested in is sort of where people land on how much they're willing to spend on this game and what goes into, changing that or deciding what to buy and what not to buy. Right out of the gate, I want to say this is not going to really be a video complaining about the price of Yu-Gi-Oh! This game is extremely expensive. We all know that. We don't really like it, but that's how it is. So I feel like instead of just, whining about that for another video for the umpteenth time, it'd be more interesting to just talk about, the real lived player experience instead. So, for instance, you can be a person who buys no sealed product at all, or maybe you buy a couple packs here and there when you can, or perhaps you buy boxes, or maybe even cases. Also, some people just buy singles, and when they buy singles, they might only buy cheap singles or wait for singles to go down. Some people buy max rarity decks. I remember Sam was telling me in a video or something that we were working on recently, and he's like, yeah, I can only play decks max rarity. And I was like, Jesus Christ, Sam, you're insane. But, some people are like that, and so it's like a different strokes for different folks thing. Also, another thing to just get out of the way, first of all, don't spend more money than you can afford. I think that should be obvious, but I have been to, card shops and stuff and seen people just like buying up all the Yu-Gi-Oh cards they can. And then like 2 weeks later, they're like, guys, I can't make rent or like, whatever. I got to like sell all my cards to pay my car note or something. And it's like, Jesus Christ, maybe you should have thought about that. Like, financial obligations always kind of got to come first. There's nothing wrong with not being able to afford cards. You just got to be responsible about your spending. So that's a thing. But okay. Anyway, the main thing that I wanted to discuss here is this kind of idea of time value of Yu-Gi-Oh cards. Because I think it's a little bit unique in our game, especially compared to sort of similar card games. So basically, some people view trading cards or just things that they buy in general as like investments that should hold their value or maybe even appreciate over time. And for games like Pokemon, that can actually sometimes be the case. Like some Pokemon cards don't really get reprints. Like I feel like most Pokemon cards don't really get reprints. And sometimes people will just get them with the intention of holding on to them and their value appreciating. Yu-Gi-Oh's not really like that. Yu-Gi-Oh cards' value, just from the jump, comes directly as a result of like playability. There are collectible cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! People sometimes, will get excited over anime support cards and those can go up in value. And there's other like exceptions and stuff. But generally speaking, a card's price is just determined by its playability. Like Molcharmy, Fualos, Fiendsmith Engraver, Primite, Lordly Load, that one just spiked up a whole bunch in the last couple weeks because of the Blue Eye structure deck. All these cards are valuable because they're playable, highly playable, necessary even if you're going to be competing at the high level. Or at least, that's the idea, right? So, there's also an understanding, or I hope that there's an understanding, and if there's not, then hopefully this video maybe helps it be more clear for people. Yu-Gi-Oh cards are also going to get reprinted. Some card games don't reprint their cards very often, but like in Yu-Gi-Oh, everything's going to be reprinted in a year. That's just how it goes. Some vendors and card shop owners and stuff don't actually like that aspect of Yu-Gi-Oh, that sort of rampant amount of reprints. I'm a fan of reprinting because I think that people should be able to get the cards in some form or fashion eventually. But yeah, so with this understanding then that cards price is like based, like their value is based on how playable they are, and you will lose access to, or like the cards will lose their value in about a year. I think that the rational solution is if you're going to, buy the most expensive cards, then I think that you should, and that very same day that you click purchase on that Fiendsmith Engraver playset or that Fualos playset, Impulse playset, whatever it is, whip out your calendar and like go to that Konami website and find every regional that you can possibly go to in the next couple months, because a ban list is going to come out and hit the cards, or they're going to get a reprint announced at some point. And so really the value that you get out of these cards is not in just inherent to the cards. It's kind of more like, are you going to get playtime out of these cards, right? Like if you get the expensive stuff, I think that you should plan regionals. Like, okay, I'm going to hit up this regional, I'm going to hit up this regional, this OTS championship, I'm going to go to this YCS. Because if you're not, there's just no possible way to justify spending that much money unless you are actually a madman like Sam. So, Yeah, that's kind of like my rationale for things. And also, I'm going to kind of talk about how I make my own buying habits and stuff with Yu Gi Oh! First of all, I typically buy at least one box of every new set. Not everybody does this, and I understand that I might be in a fortunate enough position that I can afford to buy like a box of a new set because not every player can or maybe does do that. But I typically will buy one box, two boxes if it's an exciting set or one that I'm really excited like about just like opening or building something for them or whatever. I do it to support the local card shops. I try to buy local where I can, even if it's usually more expensive than buying on TCG Player. But them's the breaks. Got to try to help them keep the lights on. B, I actually do like opening product, and then C, YouTube. So yeah, I usually buy like a box of each set. I am not one of these people who cracks cases. I know that some people, they are buying cases and cases of stuff and they're opening it, and it can be easy to kind of get like allured by that. But I always tell people you probably shouldn't be buying cases, like even if you can afford them, because sometimes you'll see like YouTubers buying like cases and opening them on stream and all this stuff, and it's like that's probably sponsored, or that might be their shop's case and their shop just let them open it or whatever. There's so many reasons why like a YouTuber or content creator or something can do it that maybe a normal person shouldn't be. But yeah, I typically buy like a box of each set, and I'll usually buy like a single stray pack here and there at Walmart sometimes when I'm grocery shopping. Like it just sort of depends on the set and if I really like it a lot. Like sometimes I'll buy one of those little 4-pack boxes that come with the tokens they've been doing recently. Things like that. As far as singles are concerned, I have not actually paid a load of money for singles in many, many years. Not exactly anyway. I think the last time I remember like explicitly buying good singles to compete with was like 2017 with Dragonic Diagram and Pot of Duality for a True Draco deck that I was playing, because I was planning on using it at a couple of regionals, and I was going to go to nationals that year and try to play the deck in that. So I was like, okay, I don't mind spending how much was it? Pot of not Duality, Desires. Pot of Desires was like really expensive, $60-$70. Dragonic Diagram was like $80. I think Ash Blossom was expensive too. And I remember buying all these because I was like, okay, I'm going to go to this tournament and like, and make it count and do the thing. I never really ended up like winning any of that stuff, I don't think, but I had a pretty good time. Do I feel like my investment was well spent? Hard to say. I wouldn't say it wasn't. Like the fact that I was kind of getting to go around to these events and do well and have fun, like that was nice. Would I do it again? Maybe not. But yeah, so like that's kind of my thing though, is like you kind of gotta like just accept that the only way to really get value or extract value from these cards is like playing them at events. The other scenario in which I spend a lot of money on Yu-Gi-Oh cards is if there's a deck that I really, really like. And it's not necessarily that it's a top tier deck, but it's a deck that I really like. I will usually try to max rarity like those decks. There's only a few. Like for me, that's like Vanquish Soul, Exo Sisters, Labyrinth, Rescue Ace, and maybe recently Voiceless Voice. I have been kind of trying to slowly but steadily gather collector's rare cards for these decks, or like ultis from like OTS packs, or whatever I deem the highest rarity to be. That would be an interesting video as well. It's like, what do you deem high rarity? Because like sometimes people feel like collector's rares, sometimes it's like Starlight, sometimes it's ulti. It can kind of just depends on the person. Anyway, though, yeah, so for decks that I really like, I will go out of my way to spend my hard-earned cash and upgrade to like a collector's rare Vanquish Soul Rosin, or maybe try to get a Starlight Exo Sisters Magnifica or whatever. It's not really like smart. Like I think at that point you're kind of understanding that this is an obsession a little bit. Like it's a deck that you really like and you really connect with. And there's no reason I can't just play like regular copies of Rosin and all these other cards. Like they've even been reprinted. But when it comes to just the chance to upgrade rarities for decks, I typically will go out of my way to do it if it's a deck I really like. That said, though, it's just different strokes for different folks, and I wanted to know then what goes into your buying decisions. How much are you willing to spend, and what determines if you spend it? Do you have to really like a structure deck to buy it, or do you just kind of buy 3 of every structure deck? I've met people like that. Some people just love building every single thing. Like they just kind of want to have every deck built. I've met a few people who that's what they do. They want to build every single deck as best they can, and they will spend the money, and it's like a little wild to me. But as I have said in the past and will say again, I'm not really here to judge how different people choose to spend their money on Yu-Gi-Oh! Or the decks that they decide to build and play. I just like to hear the stories. I want to hear the justifications, why, what's it like for you, what dictates that, what's the most you've ever spent on cards, and do you regret spending that much or maybe not? I should probably add, I have actually spent exorbitant amounts of money on a couple of very special cards for myself, like the DDS Blue Eyes and DDS Dark Magician. I also have a DDS Exodia. Those are cards that for me are just like, I really wanted to have those. They felt iconic. I also bought an Air Neos online because, the whole Air Neos thing. So those are cards that I do feel kind of break my rule, and like I'll just spend a bunch for them because I'm crazy. I don't know. Maybe Sam's not so different from me after all. All right, well, that's going to be it. I want to hear what you guys think down below in the comments. So chime in, let me know, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Fast turn.